Welcome to the Mod Brothers official podcast, episode 4.
Hello and welcome to the Mod Brothers podcast. This is episode 4, which is brought to you by mnpctech.com, the home of pro case modding and supplies. I'm Kyle VDM, and today we've got with us Bill Owen.
Hey everybody.
Craig Brugger.
How's it going, guys?
And Jeremy Birch.
Good evening.
So today is a nice small panel, but it should be good. And first off, after the aluminum thing last episode, I'm going to finally sort this out. And it was posted on a forum that it is in fact aluminium, not aluminum. The Americans just hated aluminium, so hey, I win.
Hey, we're a bunch of jerks.
Yeah, we're just like that, you know, we get our way.
Yeah.
Interview.
So today we have Craig from Losias. Losias.
Losias.
There we go. So Craig, why don't you just tell us about who you are, your screen name, and what you do?
Okay, I have a website, losias.net. It's for Losias Technologies. Basically, my screen name is Craig Brew. You can find me on multiple forums. I'm sure if you would put my name in Google, you'd come up with way too many hits. But basically, I would consider myself pretty new to the modding scene comparatively. I mean, I don't think I did anything really significant until 2006. But in some way or another, I've always been a modder. You know, ever since I was a little kid, I would take things apart. You know, sometimes people give me things to fix, and I would not fix them just so I could have the parts that were inside. And you know, as I got older, you know, I guess maybe I kind of take a cynical look at a lot of stuff in the world, thinking, well, everything has a compromise. You know, what can you do to make it better, or to fix it, or to improve it? And a few years ago, I kind of directed that towards computers. And my first mod was just a simple mod. I put a LCD in the front of a shuttle SN25P, and you know, everybody that saw it thought that, you know, it's great, you ought to do more like this. And then with encouragement, and you know, I started checking out a lot of the websites that are out there. You know, BitTech was especially helpful at the time, and so, you know, there's some really cool stuff out there, and I just started stepping up my game. And when I started Project Losias, I liked the idea of a really small box. And anybody that visits Losias will see that, you know, the whole site is about small form factor modding. You know, there's just something that's really appealing about efficiently packing a case full of hardware. You know, I mean, it's not about, you know, everything has a function, has a purpose, and with, you know, the Project Losias, you know, I had, you know, a 7-inch LCD in there. I had SLI, you know, just the touchscreen LCD, and I mean, just Peltier cooled. It was just all sorts of hardware in a really small case, and you know, it just, I really loved the engineering behind it, and it was that project that actually allowed me to be contacted by NZXT or Next, depending on who you talk to. Johnny Who saw my project at Hard OCP and contacted me. He said, "Hey, we got a new case coming out. Would you like to mod it and do something with it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's great," because that was, you know, more than I expected. And so at the time, I got one of only 2 NZXT Rogues in existence to mod, and he basically told me, it's like, "Hey, don't screw this up because we don't have any replacement parts." I'm like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And at the time, it was supposed to be, you know, a relatively small project. I was just going to mod an ATX motherboard into it because it was micro ATX stock, and add water cooling. You know, that was pretty much the extent of it. And as I got started on it, things just kind of snowballed. And 9 months later, I ended up with something completely different than I had intended to start with. And, it's just the list of parts in there is a little crazy, but it made me realize that I really loved the engineering behind it. How can I make it work and make it work well? I didn't want to have any compromises. I was always looking to step up the game. I learned a lot, with the fabrication end of it that I hadn't really done before. And I would say now with anything in the future, I'm planning a project called Losias, going carbon fiber and aluminium.
Aluminium.
I can't say it. That's just
Don't give in. Don't even try.
I did it for him, but I won't do it again. But no, it's just always looking to step up my game. And when I started the website, it was originally just a place to host my pictures. That's really all I wanted. I didn't want to use ImageShack or any place else. I just wanted to host my pictures there, and things have kind of snowballed there. And as of the end of September, we've added forums now, and so it's basically all about small form factor modding and hardware. That's kind of our focus. That's I kind of no offense to all the guys out there that are able to build big computers, but I think it takes it to another level when you have the challenge of putting that much hardware in a smaller case and have it be efficient. That's just kind of the challenge I love. So that's pretty much my story.
What does Losias, if I could ever say it, what does it actually stand for?
Okay, Losias, it originally stood for lots of stuff, only it was the expletive version of stuff, and a Sugo, because the first case was a Silverstone Sugo, SG01. And that's originally what it stood for. Now it stands for lots of stuff in a system. That's the more PG way of putting it. But at the time, it was a really unique name, and it was so unique I decided to stick with it because when you say Losias, it only means one thing. So
if you can say it.
If you can say it, if you're not British, right?
Leave me alone. Yeah. So why don't you just tell us a bit about the projects you're working on now, and also some of the stuff in your labs, because I've been browsing around your forums and you've got some pretty cool stuff in there as well.
Yeah. Right now I'm working on a project called Hutch, for lack of a better name for a guy who goes by the screen name Hutch. That was, we didn't have anything original to name it, so we just went with Hutch. That's basically PC Design Labs, Q Micro case. Started on it almost a year ago, and it should have been done many times over already, but it's been a really fun project. I'm putting a pair of 120.2 radiators in there, and just even though it's not a really big project compared to the stuff I've done in the past, this is all about the details. It's just clean, and I'm hoping to wrap that up here soon. My next project for myself is called Losias, and that's going to be something completely new for me as well, because it's going to be a carbon fiber molded case, aluminum tray on the inside. It's going to have a system in a system. Basically, it's going to have a VIA Pico ITX motherboard inside, being controlled by a touchscreen, and that's going to be responsible for monitoring fans, water temp, flow. It's just going to be a lot of high-tech hardware in this case, and that's kind of my next big project. 'Cause after I did the Rogue, I decided, you know what? I'm never going to do anything for myself that's equal. I'm going to find a way to expand it, to improve it, to push the limits, and I'll see if I can pull it off. I've got a couple new techniques I'm going to have to try, because I haven't really seen, people try a few things I'm going to try to do, but if I can pull it off, I'm a little worried of what I might do after that. I don't know.
What is it, Craig, that you're talking about? Is it the carbon fiber, or?
Yeah, just the carbon fiber. I've seen a lot of people make carbon fiber sheets and cut them up. But the entire case is going to be molded, and it's going to be actually a reverse mold, which means I'm going to build a mold and wrap the carbon fiber around it, vacuum bag it, and hope to come up with something that's looks good, and it's not a square. It's kind of maybe a squared off eggplant type shape if you want to put it in its simplest terms. But it's going to, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. And I've worked with fiberglass before and been pretty successful with that, so I think I can do carbon fiber. I think, yeah, I can. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And because the stuff, and I'm sure you guys have worked with carbon fiber some. It's just to see it in person, there's just a luster, a three-dimensional look to it that you can't replicate with paint, or it doesn't even show up in pictures very well. To see it in person, you're just wow.
Yeah.
So I'm really
the desired material of all time.
Yeah, it is, and to be honest, I don't know why a lot of people don't work with it. I mean, I know it's not as easy as working with aluminum, but it's cost-wise, it's really not a whole lot more if you're talking about the same size of aluminum. It's just I think it's one of the new things. I mean, at this point, I don't know what can be done with aluminum that hasn't been already done with aluminum. I mean, I think it's time to move on and push things a little bit.
I think we just need people like you to break the boundaries and say, this is what you can do, go and do it.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm trying to do on the site. It's just giving people a chance to come together and push the limits. I mean, if I have to start something, that's great. I would love for people to copy anything that I've done, because honestly, there have been a lot of people before me that I've copied and emulated and said, that's really awesome. I want to do something like that. And then I think with everybody that does something somebody's done before, they would try to innovate and make it a little bit different. And that's what moves the, I don't want to say modding art forward. So that's a really big deal to me. That's why I do it. That's, I think, why anybody bothers to post a work log on any site in the first place, just to get the stuff out there. Not only are they proud of what they've done, but they want to share it with others and see things move forward. Yep. And, with Losias, I've got Losas Labs. That's just kind of a small area of the site right now, but I've done a few things like, adding a microphone to a headset. Not a big deal, but it's something that you go buy a headset with a microphone. There's not a whole lot of quality units out there. So this was just a way to have a great microphone with a great headset and have it work. And I'm going to be experimenting and pushing things there. And also with Losias Live, which is one way. I've got a camera here in the workshop, and once I get everything set up and rolling, I'm going to do some live feeds, of me working and potentially screwing up. So
I watched it last time you were doing it, and it was actually pretty interesting to see how you work. You were cutting out the U shape for Project Hutch at the time. It was actually pretty cool just to watch another model working.
Yeah, and I've done just a few little test runs here, nothing really significant and nothing more than, say, maybe 10, 15 minutes worth of work. But, I've got new lights here in the shop, that are, as bright as the surface of the sun. So I should have I first time I clicked them on, I think I was blinded. I couldn't see right for a day. I've since put a dimmer in, so now it's much more controllable. And I'm looking to get a new camera in here. A 720p camera, so things will be clearer, crisper. But it's I think it's one more way to evolve what we do. Pictures and work logs are great, but how much better would it be to see it happen?
Yeah.
So, actually, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but
totally understood. I mean, you're right. Videos. I find that right now that YouTube is the biggest audience right out there for what we're doing. It's growing rapidly. And I was going to ask, do you have a YouTube page, Craig?
No, actually, I don't. I've never really recorded anything YouTube worthy, but that is something I'm definitely going to get into. Once I get everything set up here, along with the live broadcast, I'm going to archive things that I record and put it on YouTube. It's just kind of, I feel like with Hutch, the project I'm working on right now, I need to get that done and out of the way, so I don't have any time commitments. If I'm working on my own project, I can take as long as I want.
Yeah.
And I can maybe document things better, because that's honestly one of the hardest things about modding and posting work logs is, the documentation. Because when you're on a roll, it's really hard to stop and, I got to take a picture. Crap. Sometimes you just forget, and there are steps that you miss. And, so I'm actually, and that's one of the reasons I want to do video too, because then it's live. Maybe I can, pull pictures off my video feed or whatever. I don't need to worry about missing that one good shot. So, well, it's all an experiment. So we'll see how it goes.
It's one thing I did notice when I was working to a deadline as well. I was kind of like, I don't want to take pictures. I've got 2 months to do this. So, yeah.
No, it sucks. It ruins your mojo when you're in the zone and you're like, oh, God, I didn't take that one picture and I got to go back. Oh, screw it,
Yeah, that's right. You write something like, well, you didn't see what I just did, but use your imagination. It was really cool, though.
Believe me that this case was beige before the day started. I think that's just about all the questions we've got for you.
Okay.
But now we're going to go.
I have a question for Craig.
There you go.
Craig, you're a fantastic fabricator. You seem to you have a real way with manipulating metal. And for a lot of people, the thing is, you're doing it out of your home. You're not in like a machine shop, and you're doing this stuff. And what is your background? How did you get these skills?
Well, I grew up on a farm, and my dad was a farmer and carpenter, and you pick up a lot of stuff. When you're a farmer, you don't often buy new stuff. You repair what you have, and through all my years of helping him with carpentry work, we do, sheet metal on soffits and around. I mean, it's just a lot of skills I picked up over the years, and a lot of stuff is just self-taught. I'm pretty much a hands-on guy. I can watch something and learn it by watching it, but I think the best way to learn something is just to do it. And, when you've got, aluminum can be pretty pricey when you're working with aluminum. You take the time to get it done right the first time, and I guess a lot of stuff is just self-taught, and it's not all about the equipment. I mean, I see some great mods on websites that are just amazing, and they're all done with CNC, and that's great if you've got the resources, but and I don't want to sound negative toward people who use CNC, because I don't think that's anything wrong with that. But I think when you could take something and work it yourself, with your hands, with hand tools, or, just in the simplest way possible, that's kind of, I don't know. It's
you're an artisan.
Yeah, exactly. You understand the process. You don't have to, you don't have to, when you do something in CNC, you may or may not come up with the design to begin with, but when you actually have to take a Dremel or a jigsaw and a file and make that piece, I think you understand the art a little bit better. You understand the process, and I think when you're done, you're going to have more respect for whatever you made, because it's your hours of labor and sweat and tears that you put into this part. And God forbid you get almost done and screw something up and you've got to start over. Well, that's part of the process too,
Yeah, that is. I mean, so many times projects have just gotten hacked. It happens. Did somebody ask about that? What do you do if you screw up a project?
I don't think so, unless I've missed something.
Yeah, I think actually there was a question in there. Have you ever, have you ever done something that was just, something, you're right, something like that.
And yes, it's the reason
everybody does.
It's the reason it's the reason I haven't finished Tribox. It's like in pieces at the moment because one of my next door neighbors went and knocked it off the shelf and the wood snapped.
Oh, ouch.
So I need to get started on that all over again. But
I was watching some project where they goofed it up royally, and they're whining and complaining, and I'm like, you gotta reapproach it and look at it this way. Make it better than you were doing last time. You know what you did wrong, but this time it's going to be even better. So look at it that way.
Right. And that's the way you do have to look at it. It's a new opportunity, I mean, because I don't think, no matter how well you plan, I don't think anybody ever really gets things exactly right the first time. I think it's probably rare. I mean, I don't know. When I get done with something, I always think, oh, you know what? I should have did this. It may look fine, but it's like, you know what? I should have took a different approach to this. And sometimes, taking a step back and restarting whatever you were doing is actually for the better.
It is all part of the learning curve of modding.
Exactly.
So. And we've just lost Jeremy, so let me see if we can get him back.
I was wondering why he's quiet.
He dropped.
Well, Craig, like I said, I'm going to watch you work with that carbon fiber. May have even got it from the same source. There's some guy online that sells it at a really good price, and I got it a while back, and I was going to make a shroud for a radiator. And I just got intimidated by it in that I've seen what molded carbon fiber pieces look like, and I'm thinking, how in the heck am I ever going to do something like that? And I guess I was scared of the chemicals that you use. How do you apply them right? And I just didn't want it to look like crap. And I felt like if I can't make it look right, then I'm just going to wait until I learn more about it, before I approach it.
Have you ever worked with fiberglass?
Yeah.
It's awfully similar, it's, I wouldn't say it's exactly like, but I mean, the resin process, the layering process, is all pretty similar. The biggest difference is the cost of the material. You don't really want to screw up carbon fiber if you're paying for it out of your own pocket. That's kind of a costly mistake. And, so, I'm not sure. I'd like to come up with some way to test my process before I just dive into it, but
yeah.
I don't know if I have that option. I just maybe have to
learn it on the fly.
Learn it on the fly, and hope I get it right.
Well, my question is, how do you get the nice sheen gloss? The nice clear coat on it. I mean, what are they doing to it to get that just perfect glass finish on it?
Well, glass is actually the answer. When they'll either make molds out of pieces of glass, or like with the sheets, it's just resin, fiber, possibly filler, more fiber, resin, and they sandwich it between two pieces of waxed glass, and it's the surface of the glass that gives it the sheen. So that's one of the reasons it's really hard to molds are just a pain in the butt all the way around, and you need a perfect mold to get a perfect sheen. And I'm definitely not a mold maker. So yeah, to get something as flat as glass, you basically need glass. You're not going to see really complex shapes that have that perfect finish, because it's just really hard to pull off.
Well, don't you? I always thought, and I guess I was wrong. I don't know. Don't people like wet sand the surface and buff it out?
Yeah. Yes, you can definitely. It's sandable, it's buffable. But if your surface isn't perfect to begin with, you're really not going to get a perfectly flat finish. I mean, it's going to look great, but it's not going to look like a sheet of glass. And that's one of the things I know I'm going to have to deal with. I'm not going to have something that looks like a sheet of glass. It's going to have a nice gloss and sheen because, and it depends on the resin. You use a good hard resin, it'll sand and buff up just fine. But it's just, I'm trying to think what to compare it to. It's just, yeah.
Well, what are you going to make? You mentioned that you're going to make like a core wrap the. What are you going to make the core out of?
Honestly, probably cardboard and wood. Because it's something I want to be able to disassemble to get it out from inside of the shell.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be terribly sturdy. I mean, it's going to be sturdy, but it doesn't need to support any weight. It basically just needs to hold its shape. So cardboard and wood to hold the shape. Then I'll wrap it around, and that way I can just disassemble or mash or whatever, rip out the center. And I'll obviously have some surface work on the outside to do. I'll be sanding and buffing and polishing to get it to look nice. But I think that's really the best, possibly easiest way to do it. I mean, the only other way to do it would be to make a regular mold and put the shape inside the mold. But, I don't know, because of the shape of the case itself, that would be...
It'd be a pain.
Yeah. It would be a pain. I'd spend I don't know how many hours just trying to make the mold. I don't know if that's worth it.
When the carbon when it's the resin is curing, and when you do the vacuum forming, so this piece is going to be inside a bag of some sort, and
yeah, basically, yeah.
And you just what are you going to hook up to a vacuum cleaner or something to suck the air out?
Shop vac, literally.
Yeah, how long does that take?
Well, it depends on the resin, the cure time. A lot of it, I would say I'd give it an hour. You basically want to get all the voids, depending on how many layers of carbon fiber you have. You want to get all the voids out of the carbon fiber. You want to get all the air out of it. And that's basically what the vacuum bagging does, is it squeezes all the resin out between the layers of carbon fiber. It gives a relatively uniform, smooth finish. So at that point, hopefully any surface work will be minimal. You shouldn't have much for ridges or valleys or dips. It should be pretty smooth, at least, from what I know and from what I've seen. In practice, I may end up being disappointed, but yeah, I think I've got a pretty good idea.
I'm going to tune in for that. I want to know. I mean, give us a heads up if you could when you reach that.
Oh, definitely.
Drop us a note or something. Says I want to watch that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and just a real quick bit of shameless self-promotion here. Anybody that follows me on Twitter, that's at Craig Brew. On Twitter, whenever I do things like live streaming and stuff like that, I'll post a quick Twitter update, and that's, I think, how I get most of my people anybody that wants to look at what I do, to actually see what I'm doing at the time, because otherwise I don't know of anything else that's real time, to let people know that, hey, I'm streaming now if you want to watch. So.
And talking about Twitter, there's also the Mod Brothers Twitter account, which is at the Mod Brothers.
Craig, what you should do is everybody that's registered with your form. I mean, I think it's beneficial if you were to say, hey, is it okay if I? Well, I guess not on the carbon fiber thing, but once in a while, send out a notice with that channel, through the registration emails, just an idea. You're gonna do another one of your, live stream videos on this date, or we're doing it tonight. Tune in.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely, that's definitely one way to get the word out. And we don't have a whole lot of members yet since we're a relatively young site, but yeah, that's definitely one way. Because I like to think if anybody took the time to register for the site in the first place, they're obviously interested in what I do or what the other members there are posting. And we've got some great small form factor worklogs there, and I'd love to have more people pay attention to that, because kind of its own little niche there.
It is. Well, I mean, you said you were a moderator from Sudian?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and they really don't. I mean, there's been mods that have come out of there, but they don't really cultivate modding, or they don't really host it or promote it that much there. No,
they don't. And that's where I got my start. That's where I posted my first shuttle mod. Was actually on Sudian, because it's all about shuttles at the time. It's still all about small form factor, but I think the small form factor community is kind of fragmented. I mean, you've got a lot of great forums out there. Obviously the Mod Brothers is one of them, BitTech, HardOCP, and they're they've got their own little section, and maybe a few small form factor mags in there, but nothing that really is trying to pull those places or all those mods together in one place. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And I think it complements other sites really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It does. I mean, the fact that I will join a forum knowing that the founder actually has some chops to do the stuff, and he's done the stuff. There's just more respect there, and that kind of leadership cultivates more people to that are talented and worth following.
Yeah, exactly. And this is this isn't a business. I don't do this to make money. I do this just for the love of it. Of course, everybody I think wants to make a little bit of money doing it, but that's not the goal. That's not why I do anything. I do it because I enjoy it. It's fun. It's a release. I like sharing what I do. I like seeing what other people do, and the whole sense of community. I mean, you look at any one of these forums, and everybody knows everybody. I mean, you mention somebody's name or somebody's project. Everybody knows what you're talking about, and that's one of the great things about forums or the internet in general. It's brought me to know a lot of people I would have never otherwise met, and vice versa. So it's all good.
Yeah. We're still able to get Jeremy back.
What's going on with that?
I have no idea. The cable at home went out, so he's at his shop at work at the moment.
Me.
He's at work at the moment.
Oh, jeez.
No. Well, should we talk about him while he's gone then, or what?
Yeah, he's funny. He's a good guy, man. You know what? I was telling this to Kyle the other day about Jeremy. Is what I like about Jeremy is you get Jeremy. You don't get anybody else. I mean, he how do you say it? I mean, he doesn't put up a front or anything. He's just a good guy, and what I like about him is that he's an honest guy. I mean, he's comfortable being himself around you.
Yeah.
And that's what I like him. He's genuine. He's a very genuine guy, and I find that in my realm, there's not a lot of people like that. It seems like they want something, or Jeremy, he will give you the jacket off his back if it was necessary. He's that kind of guy, So. And I like people like that. I like people that are just honest in they're who they are, and they're not ashamed. They're not trying to be somebody else and stuff like that. So.
And just so you guys all know, all the sound bites and all the rest in the podcast all done by Jeremy as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Oh yeah, great musician. He does a lot of electronic music. Well, he did. I don't know if you knew that, Craig.
No, I actually didn't.
No, he did. He was like a DJ. He did a lot of ambient electronic kind of stuff, and he actually has sent me some tunes, some clips to use. And this week I'm going to show the Cheapskate Cube, and Jeremy had done the music for the video, and so I thought that was great because I personally know the artist, and it's an opportunity for him to get his name out there with that type of stuff he does. And,
that's great. I mean, I know he's a multi-talented guy. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah, and he's fast too. I mean, when you ask him to do like a graphic or something, he whips it out faster than anybody I've known ever.
Well, when I was working on the Rogue about 2 years ago, I was coming up with a design for the top panel to go over the fans. And I posted a couple versions of my own, and I swear it was like 4 hours later, he'd sent me something that was improved, and he's like, hey, I don't know what you think of this, but maybe this looks better. And, I loved it. I went with it, and he just read the log and decided, hey, I'll help out. I didn't ask him to. He just,
right.
And
that sounds like Jeremy.
It sounds like Jeremy.
Yeah. I give him full credit for that. Those panels were his doing. So.
Oh yeah, he all of our laser cut acrylic parts. Those are all his design that he's done for us that we sell.
Yeah, and they look great too.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, he's got a real flair for that stuff. And you wouldn't know a lot of this about him. Then he also does silk screening. He does our T-shirts as well.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that either.
Go and check out
hey man,
Slink Ink, I think it is.
slinkink.com or slingink.com.
Check now.
Yeah, he does awesome silk screening. I mean, I've worked with other people in the past for shirts and stuff, and see, the thing is about Jeremy, he knows quality, and he doesn't want to put his name on something that's going to be crummy, so he really takes the time to do it right, you know. So yeah, I'm very very happy to know him, and I hope to continue our friendship forever. You know, and when he came here, it was a blast. It was really fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. He really liked it. What's amazing is that, you know, Minnesota, you being from Nebraska, you can relate to the gloomy, rainy weather, and it was like that the whole time he was here. And I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry about this. He's like, oh no, it's fine. I don't mind at all. Dug it. So
you can't get much worse than Britain.
Yeah. I don't know. I think about the Brits, and I was like, how do they deal with it? You know, it's just so gloomy all the time. You know?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get him back for a while, so I think we can go back on topic.
Really? Oh, that's a shame, man. Well, we'll wait him out. I
had 2 questions for him as well.
For Jeremy?
Yeah.
What about, man? Well, hang in there. He may. That's odd that now the shop. I wonder if the shop somehow. I don't know how far he is from the shop, but maybe it's associated with that same problem. It's weird. I mean, he may just go to a coffee shop or something, you know.
But we can start with the questions.
Q&A.
This is going to be on a normal question and answer session. And I've kind of forgotten to give you guys all the email address and Twitter account and all the rest, but you can send questions into at the Mud Brothers on Twitter, or now we actually have our proper podcast email address, which is podcast@themudbrothers.com. So if you guys just want to send any questions, comments to there as well, or you can post on the forums, that would be great. And the first question we've got is from Crunch, one of our fellow moderators on the forum. And he asks, what's your favorite part of the modding process? If you had to choose a single stage, as in design, fabrication, parts, modification, or current parts and final assembly, what would it be? And Craig, why don't you start?
Okay, well, in the past, I would have said, you know, the actual construction process, you know, just building and fabricating, because I never really planned other mods ahead of time. I kind of did things on the fly, you know, and I liked the challenge of doing that. However, with this next project, I've been planning it all ahead of time, and this is going to be the first mod I'm going to have completely planned before I actually start construction. And I tell you what, I've been planning it since February, you know, not nonstop, but off and on. And I've discovered that there's a lot of things I changed since I started that I really thought I wanted. And so at this point, I'm going to say, you know, I like the design, just the planning, the process, figuring out, you know, what goes where. And, you know, if you work with any, you know, 3D drawing programs, whether it's SketchUp or I use ViaCAD, it allows you to put parts exactly where you want, see whether they're going to fit, rearrange, you know, before you even commit, you know, to firing up the Dremel. I think that's a big time saver ultimately. And I can't say I'm going to enjoy building any less, but you know, I obviously like designing it enough. I've been doing it since February. I'm still not building anything, so I would say that's currently my favorite part of the process.
And I'd have to agree with you. I don't exactly have a lot of time at the moment for modding and for anything really, as you would have noticed with the podcast being kind of off the fly. But like just being able to take half an hour in a week just to design something, like 90% of all designs I do never end up in mods. But it's just, I have great fun just designing random things, whether on paper or in SketchUp. But then when I do get the chance to mod, that is probably the best. But for me at the moment, it is the designing.
Well, you brought up a good point. You can take 15 minutes, half hour, even an hour. You don't need to. I mean, when I come down to the workshop to work, it takes a little time to get going and stuff. When all you have to do is sit at a computer and spend a little time there. It's a whole lot easier to break that up into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
It depends. For me, it depends. I mean, I like all facets of it. And I was just thinking as you guys talking there's been those assembly times when all the parts, that's that final assembly when you've got all the parts back from paint and you're fitting everything. And there's a bit of a stress there. Will it fit properly? Blah, blah, blah. But it's that walking back and looking at it after it's all assembled for the very first time. And you're trying to look at it from like a completely new perspective. Like you just walked in the room and you're looking at something like, wow, what is the first reaction I get? Do I love it? Do I hate it? Does my stomach sink a little, like, or is it like, holy cow, I can't wait to show this. This is so awesome.
The images won't upload it fast enough. Go.
Yeah, right. You're just like, I can't wait to show everybody and hear what their perception is of it.
You're so right. I know this is a podcast, but I'm sitting here nodding my head as you're talking because I completely relate. When I finished the Rogue, actually, I just got married, and we got back. Was back 2 days and had to go to San Jose for Envision, and I literally finished the Rogue and shipped it to San Jose a day before we left to get married. And I tell you what, I didn't know if I was going to make it, but having everything put together and finished and done, and you're like, that moment is just, wow, it's done, it's finished.
I know, and you just like stand there for the longest time, just like, then you kind of move back, cross your arms, look at it, kind of walk over to the other side of the table, kind of look at it, and just sit there and just kind of bask in it, I guess. Bask in like the fulfillment, like I'm done, and I'm just going to enjoy looking at it for a while.
Just sit there staring at the project. The fans go round.
Absolutely.
I think it's one moment where you're allowed to be completely self-absorbed and think, you know what, I'm awesome. Because it's at that point, you feel good, and that's a big deal.
What's even better is when you do it with somebody else, and they're there with you, and you experience it together, and you crack open a beer, kick back, and just sit back. And go, yeah, that was awesome. That's, to me, I found out there's more fulfillment in doing group projects because you can all. It just even swells up and multiplies even more. The enjoyment at the end of accomplishing something where you've all come together for one thing. I've noticed that I get more enjoyment out of that.
Yeah.
See, that's one thing I've never had the opportunity to do. I've just pretty much been a solo modder, so.
Well, it's just a matter of, hooking up. It's, like some kind of opportunity would present itself. Not necessarily that you physically can get together, but even just over online working on something. A few years ago, when it was Pimprig, before PC Apex, we had done a tribute to the site before they changed the name for political reasons. But we had several people involved with doing individual facets of the build, and it was all in one worklog thread. And you got guys from all around the world doing something. That was like really cool.
Oh, that's a really.
There's like 15 names on the front of the case.
Exactly. Yeah, there was all the people there was people that just, I can't do anything. I'll just throw you guys some money, or I know so and so, or I have this part. I'll give it to you. It was a true community project, and that was a trip. When we did the final assembly, the closest guys were in Madison, Wisconsin, and they drove over for it, and I'd known these guys for years, and and to see them in person and stuff, it's a feeling that you got to experience sometime. It's really awesome, because you all have that same passion and love for this stuff, and like you're saying, Craig, normally you do it alone, and you're alone in your shop, but to have somebody else there that can ride on that same wave, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, I can imagine that's a pretty cool experience, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to do it sometime because that's I feel like sometimes here I'm the only person, anything that I don't post on the forums, I've got nobody to really explain to, what I'm doing, I mean, I don't know if anybody else even mods in Nebraska. I feel like they're the only one in the entire state. And
that's why I feel in Minnesota. So. And the wife's like, "Oh, that's nice. Anyways, da 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 da."
Completely.
Yeah, I know that. Or even my kids, my son is too young yet. He kind of gets it, but for maybe like 10 seconds, and then he walks and turns away. He's like, oh, But I think once he's a teenager, he can appreciate it more. Yeah. So, anyways, people out there, if you have an opportunity, hook up with somebody and build something together because it's even more fun.
And I've just found that question that we were talking about earlier, and it's from John. And have you ever given up on a project or mod? And I'm sure the answer from all of us is yes. Not necessarily given up, but on an extended pause.
The love ran out on it. Put it that way. Just like, I'm not feeling it anymore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've definitely had that happen. There was a project I was planning called Duality right before I started working on planning on Losias, and I spent months, in the design stage planning and picking out parts, and it was going to be perfect. And then it's like, you know what? I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I think we need to ban Bill from ever doing a biomechanical mod.
You know what? That's one of the most anticipated mods I want to see finished. But every day's a disappointment.
It's so funny. I got to bring this up this morning. There's a guy in Portugal. His name is Carlos, and he's a member of the forum actually. And I just logged on, and he came up on Messenger, and I've never really talked to him. So he got his microphone hooked up and stuff. And then he had to go and bring up, that biomech one. Yeah, when are you gonna get that done? And I'm like, oh, I know everybody says that. But here's what I told him and what I tell everybody else. I'm putting so much of my heart into it that I have to have, here's the problem, money. I have to have the best hardware in it, and I can't afford the best hardware. I want to have an EVGA classified motherboard. I want to have triple SLI, and I want to run a 975, Core i7. And I've talked to all the manufacturers, and they're like, yeah, it sounds nice, but what are you going to do for us? And it's like, well, I mean, I can only tell them so much. The problem is that a lot of people, I know they haven't experienced this, but if you ever do sponsorship with a large manufacturer, generally when you get a contact, that individual is just a 9-to-5er. They go home, and I may offend some people out there, but they go home to their Dell or they go home to their HP. They're not modders. They're not really doing what we do. So our culture is kind of alien to them in ways. And so they only want to see, well, what's the benefits, like numbers-wise? What are you going to do for us? I mean, how is this going to affect our sales and stuff? And as a small independent modder, I mean, well, I can just get the word out and at least put a reputable name behind it using it, in the community as a representative. And it seems like, yeah, that sounds all right, but I don't know. So it's like I've talked to these companies, but they have yet to be convinced that it's worth it.
So if there's any reps listening, you know what to do.
Yeah, you know what? And then it's funny, the guy, Carlos, said, you know what? You just may be talking to the wrong person there. So that could be as well. But anyways, I feel that I need to find out what hardware I'm going to get if I'm going to get sponsorship. And then I can go from there and build around it. Because it doesn't make any sense to start building the exterior. I mean, should I make it this wide or this tall, or is this going to be here? I don't know yet. I just know that I don't want to cheap out on the. I want the case to be just as cool as the system. I want it, so, and that's a lot of money. You're talking about like $2,000 just in the motherboard, CPU, and GPUs. So.
And it'll be outdated in 6 months. So.
I know. So you got to get the bleeding edge. You got to get the very best.
Yep, that's right. And then for a short period of time, you've got the most awesome rig on the planet, and enjoy it while it lasts, because
Yeah.
things move on.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and Jeremy, I've been wanting to make a water block. I want mnpctech to get more serious about the water cooling stuff, and I would love to design and make a water block for the biomech build as a vehicle for it. So there's a lot of things that time and money that's holding it up, and if I'm not doing something significant with it for an update, I feel, then I'm just gonna let it go.
I'm surprised people have let Psycho. I think they've finally given up on pestering on Psychosis.
Yeah, they have. And the funny thing is too, Craig, is that talking about small form factor PCs. Recently working with the Zotac board, the Ion 330. I love it. It's awesome, and the fact. But you say, you like the challenge of dealing with the space. I like the fact that it doesn't consume a lot of space in my shop to work on a small build versus a monster tower.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of hardware manufacturers are finally starting to get it. I remember, obviously some of my first favorite computers were shuttles, and they were always small. Didn't always have the greatest hardware in them, but, as time's gone on, they've gotten more powerful. But, my first micro ATX board was the EVGA NF44, socket 939 SLI. I mean, at the time, that was the only micro ATX board that had that kind of horsepower. And it was just amazing. And after that became obsolete, there was nothing else. I remember starting a petition on the EVGA forums begging for, a socket 775 board. And oh yeah, well, there's no demand for that. Nobody wanted it. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. Now here, a couple years later, here we are. The manufacturers are pumping out great boards, not only micro ATX, but mini ITX now. And I think people are finally realizing you don't need to take up a lot of space to have powerful hardware.
Yeah. See, I've always been a MIDI tower guy, and me only been in the hardware PC loop for like 4 or 5 years. I've mostly been MIDI towers, just because able to fit a massive amount of hardware in them, without them being too big. But I've just gone up to a full tower, and it's actually driving me nuts. Just taking up so much space. Like the Cosmos S is actually driving me nuts.
Well, I've actually got my hardware in a full-size case right now until I get something to put my hardware in, and it's massive. I feel like it's half the size of my desk, and like, who would want this on their desk? This is crazy. I open it up and I could fit my head in there, and that's just wrong. If I could put something that big in there, the case is too big. So
yeah, I was actually running my latest rig on my desk, just sitting there for ages because I just hated having a big case. But I decided to water cool, so I had to put it into a case. So it's gone into the Cosmos S, and I hate it.
Hey guys, that was Jeremy just called me. The power grid went out at his home, and then when he got to the shop to log, the power's out there. But he said it just came back up, so he'll be logging in shortly, hopefully.
All right.
Good, sounds good.
Sorry, I had to leave. But where were we? So what did I miss? I suppose I just better listen to the podcast.
You missed the best part of the podcast, and I don't know what to tell you.
Oh,
there's Jeremy's back. You missed me hating on the Cosmos S. Nothing special.
Oh. Well, I mean, anyways, the whole ITX thing, I love it. And it seems that it's opened up a new doorway to me just for creativity, because you can do so much more stuff with it. And you know what? You guys are right. The small form factor stuff is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I mean, in my opinion, you're just getting out there before anybody else does. Because as a modder, I'm going to start doing more ITX stuff.
Yeah.
And cost-wise too.
Yeah, exactly. Great. And that's all good points. And people don't want to take up the space. They don't want the cost, and you look at people that have been modding full-size rigs for years, at some point, what's left to innovate? What are we going to do that hasn't been done already? It's like, well, let's go smaller, and it's, you can get a whole lot more creative with your case, your enclosure. Some things I wouldn't even call a case anymore because they don't fit the definition. But it's just some really cool things. It's more like art. And you look at the cheapskate build you've done. The Ion. What is that? Is that a case? No, it's not. But it's awesome. And who doesn't want one? Everybody wants one.
I know. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's going to be hard to see it go if it wins the contest, but rightfully so. As Craigzilla, they call him Craigzilla. Cheapskate had it was a great idea. I mean, the mind of Cheapskate is very wild. I mean, there's nobody like him out there.
He's Jeremy's back.
So, anywho, yeah, I'm all about ITX as well, man. And one thing I want to bring up is ITX actually will, in my opinion, open up the door to some people to actually manufacture cases in the U.S. because they are so much smaller and simplified that I could see some small homebrew cases probably coming out of this.
Yeah.
I know that Dave Lalopa at PC Design Lab, they've got that new ITX case that they just came off the NAS box, and that's going to be hitting Logic Supply is going to be selling that, and somebody else too. But Dave recognizes the change, the shift in technology is getting smaller, so it's great. I mean, affordability-wise, I could actually see milling a case for an ITX box.
That would be awesome.
Could be feasible.
The Hoogems, whatever they were.
Yeah, those are great cases.
Well,
those are innovative.
Now that it's up they're not making them anymore, and the company's up for sale. But hey, now that they're out, there's a nice big gap in the market.
Well, I think looking at them, they are cool, but I don't see how they wouldn't be that hard to replicate and make better. They're pretty simple. The curved, it's got the curved cover on it that may be of a trick. But laser cutting, basically laser cutting. There isn't any, I didn't think there was any milled parts on that case. It was just laser cut, and then the top cover was formed. So, they disappeared, but doesn't mean that somebody else can't come along with a better idea.
Yeah.
I think there's always potential, for better ideas. It's just somebody, taking the initiative to make it happen. And, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that do have great ideas, but maybe don't have the facilities or the contacts or, the finances to get something started.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Dave LaLopa about this, is to do an ITX case. Jeremy's done one.
Yeah, Blue Box.
Yeah. Just a laser cutter. And he threaded the screw holes, and it's pretty simple, but it was awesome.
You know what? You could almost do that as a kit. How much would the materials cost? Exactly.
I would buy an IKEA.
It's not the first time I've heard that either. Bill, that's the first thing Bill said. He's like, dude, you need to put that together as a kit.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys all remember like the Radio Shack kits, or when you're a kid, the little electronic kits. Why in this day and age can't the kids today have like little PC kits that they put together?
Yeah.
I would love to see that, because I think far too many kids these days don't even understand what's in that little silver, black, or beige box. They've got no concept. And I think anything that could teach kids how things work, what's under the hood, would give them an interest in maybe pursuing a career in this, or, just having a better understanding in general.
Yeah, I could see a late night infomercial, for 5 minutes long for like a do-it-yourself PC kit where the father and son are at the kitchen table and they're putting it together, and like, hey, and then like this is a processor and this is a hard drive and this is memory, your basic things and all in one kit. So there's an idea somebody can take and run with,
Let's see. I don't even know how long. Do any of you know how long we've been going for? I've lost my.
Jeremy?
Well, I should probably interject here.
He was the one that was driving during the podcast.
I apologize. The horrible pseudo power system we have down here in Florida decided to take a dump on us, and it's the whole grid must have went down because it went off, flicked back on, went off again, and then I disconnected from Skype, of course, and then the computers stayed on for about another 2 minutes, and then the backup for those ran out of power, and then they went off, and of course the modem is not on a backup. But that's not my choice. It's the employer that decides that stuff. But I ran outside and all up and down the road, all the lights were completely off. Nothing. No street lights, no nothing. So.
Wow, man.
Yeah, that's typical Florida power and light for us. Or as
you call
them. as I call them, frequent power loss.
And now that you're back, we can go on to the acrylic question. From the Matrix Continuum, what's the best method for finishing cut acrylic edges? Which sanding grits, polishes, buffing tools do you use? And I won't go on about you being an acrylic king or anything, but you can have it.
Honestly, I don't do a whole lot of manual cutting of acrylic material that much anymore. But I do on occasion, have to resort to that. I usually just sand it with, 1000 grit sandpaper, to start it off, and that gives it a nice, smooth finish on the edge. And then I usually go straight to, Novus. The Novus polishing compounds. I usually start with number 3, work down to number 2, and then finish up with number 1, of course. You can also use a torch to flame polish the edge of it as well, but that takes a little practice to really master. Just a little portable butane torch that you can get at any hardware store. Will work for that.
And kids, fire is hot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Make sure you get your parents' permission before you do that.
But it also depends on what thickness of acrylic. I was working with 6mm, which is 1/4 inch, maybe. I don't know. Somewhere around there. And when you're cutting with a jigsaw, it leaves you with some nasty edges. So I just went and started off with some 180, moved up to 500 after that, and then up to my 1000 where I can then buff it out. I just used metal polish to buff it out.
Hey, whatever works. Whatever works. It's all about experimenting.
I just grabbed some Brasso and it works pretty well.
Yep.
So. And let's see, what other questions do we have? Unless you guys have anything else to say about that.
No, I don't really work. I don't really work with acrylic enough to have a real good method. I have used the flame polishing before, with just a few small things, and as Jeremy mentioned, you do want to be careful because it's real easy to cook it a little too long, and then you end up with something that's not pretty. So.
And the last question is from somebody called Jeremy Birch. I don't know if we know him or not. But do you guys, do show prep, or do you just go in blind? And actually, this week we have done show prep. And we've got some worklogs that we've just seen around in the community. So, Bill, why don't you just start up and share the worklog for us?
Okay. I had an individual that was featured on the Case Mod blog last year that did a Mountain Mods project that was I can't remember the name of it, but he had sent me a link to his new project he calls the Black Freighter, and it's on extremesystems.org. And if you go to the... Just a sec, guys, now we'll give you the link.
And I shall stick the link in with the podcast as well.
Yeah, so much for show prep. I'm like, oh, where's the link? Let's see.
Hey, it could be worse. Your power could go out.
Right. The modder's name is Captain Dread Flint, and he uses Johnny Depp theme avatar, which is pretty funny. It's like a custom avatar of Johnny Depp's character. But he's doing a full-blown project for his i7 920, and on the first page you can see all the details of all the plumbing he's doing, and
his photos are awesome.
I'm trying to think of who else has had photos that good, and it's been a while. He may have a photography experience, or he's working at a studio or something, but the photos he's done for his worklog are really nice. They like magazine quality pictures, and the project itself is pretty extraordinary. I wanted to share it with you guys so you can look through it. And he's using, I didn't even know, I haven't followed Mountain Mod stuff for a while, but he's using a thing I believe they make called the pedestal, where the cube sits on top of it. This is new to me. I believe it's Mountain Mods that makes it. On the first page, you'll see it.
Yeah, that's definitely Mountain Mods.
Yeah. You know, what I've noticed, now I've seen Mountain Mods when they first started, and the first time I'd seen a Mountain Mods cube was quite a few years ago, and I recall that they welded the chassis together at each corner, and now I can see that they're actually screwing it together, at least from what I can tell, which is great. You know, their quality is definitely improving, and of course they've created their own niche market, which is great too.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I wish there was some UK case manufacturers.
Well, there's no reason why there can't be. I mean, if somebody has a great idea, you know, and the right resources. Anyways, once you get into this log, I just got like some kind of stupid banner ad thing that came up for Walmart. Is that you guys?
Breaking into the mainstream.
Anyways, it's a worklog to check out, because I think that the photos at every stage is really, really beautiful on this project. A lot of eye candy going on, and he's using only the best parts of everything too.
Yeah, and it's really, I browsed through the worklog, and some of his work's amazing as well. So, Jeremy, do you have a log?
To be completely honest with you, you know, when this question was submitted, I felt kind of uncomfortable about it, because I didn't want to sound like I was playing favorites with anybody. But, you know, to go ahead and answer the question, if we're talking about Mod Brothers forums, I've been paying attention to Shaza's build on her Black Pearl project. Her photography is really good, and I can definitely appreciate that. It looks like it's going to shape up to be a really cool project. It's based around the Tegan Black Pearl, which is technically a Lee & Lee V2000, just rebadged. But yeah, her photography work is really good, and that I can definitely appreciate. You know, as a project log viewer, you know, the time put into just setting up for that stuff. My personal project logs, I tend to shoot with just a crappy little point and shoot digital camera, and I just throw it on a tripod, and it's just kind of a guerrilla project log. But I can appreciate somebody actually taking the time to take really good pictures. Over at BitTech, I also pay attention to Cheapskate's Glass Queen build. His scratch build. It's cheap. He always has interesting ideas.
Interesting's an understatement when it comes to cheaps.
He always. The thing about cheaps is he always does some interesting. He'll take a project, then he'll add some interesting element to it that's completely like its own project. Yeah. Like the design he was doing on the side for that cube. He seems to take all these little individual ideas that are separate and then meld them into one thing.
Yeah.
When you look at his stuff, there's only one Cheaps, and you're not going to see it replicated again, and you don't know where he's going with his stuff ever. You're just along for the ride.
And Craig?
I knew the question was coming too, and you're looking through any logs on any of these sites, and there's just, it's a little overwhelming. I would think, or it seems to me that the quality of work and the quality of mods in the past year or 2 years has really taken off. And, if I have to pick one that I'm currently interested in, I'm actually really liking the Mini-Me mod by Oliver W92. He's got a log on the Mod Brothers and BitTech, and I believe Hard OCP as well. But it's a mini ITX scratch build, and it's nothing really crazy or over the top, but it's clean, and the workmanship he's putting into it is just great photographs, well documented. He's making a custom fan controller, from scratch. Just some nice little details that I really like. And this is mod he planned. He designed it before he started building it, so he knew where everything was going to go. Nice, tight, compact. There's no wasted space in the case. A lot of the things I personally love in a case, he seems to be putting in this particular case. So it's one that I've been watching, and I'm really anxious to see how he finishes it off.
Yeah, I've watched that one too, and what I like about him is he has patience. He's not rushing anything, and he's methodically plodding along, because he's been doing that one for a while, and he does great photography as well, and he will always answer questions in his work log, which I really admire anybody that takes the time to answer questions from people, to show that they're actually listening to the people that are watching. Acknowledge their presence in the work log is awesome. And I wouldn't be surprised if you mentioned your forum to him if he posted his work log in there as well, because I know that he's on just about every forum out there of this project. So there's no reason why he shouldn't be on your forum as well, Craig.
Yeah, he'd fit right in. I'd love to have it there. I'll send him an email. But it's just the kind of thing that I really, really love to see, and scratch build to boot, so all good.
And finally, it's me, and I've got a work log that's done by a guy called Bungle on Watercooling UK's forums, and he's actually got some really cool ideas. He's taken a case, and he's done he decided to go for an orange and black theme. And he's made custom acrylic cable routes and stuff like that actually look really cool. But then if you go onto the second page of the work log, he's got he started to custom make radiator. Instead of just sticking the radiator into the top of the case, he's actually built a shroud for it out of aluminium and stuff like that. So it's actually a really cool little project.
It is cool. Some
Yeah,
different
very
ideas.
nice.
Yeah. I love that cable organizer.
Yeah, unfortunately it cracked, but
Oh, you can do a new one.
yep.
That's a great idea, though. I love it when people do the wiring cables through a panel like that, and like water cooled tubing as well, and it just disappears and you don't see it. I love that.
So, I think this might end up being another new little section for us. And we'll just browse around projects we see and post them up for you guys that you might not have seen as well. But I think that's us done with the podcast for today. Just lastly, I just want to give you guys the email address again, which is podcast@themodbrothers.com. If you just want to send any questions or comments there, I shall go through them and reply when I can. And I think that's just about us. So, thanks for joining us today, Craig.
Pleasure to be here.
And Jeremy, even though through the power cuts and all, you still managed to get through.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks, Bill, as always.
You bet. And thank you to everybody that have been listening to these podcasts and joining the forums and giving your feedback and saying hello. And we love it. Glad to have you part of the Mod Brothers community.